Kevin Eastman, welcome to the Mindset Advantage podcast. It's a joy and an absolute honor to have you on this show today.
Well, thanks, DJ. Anytime I have an opportunity to do things like this and share, I always think back to the older guys who used to share with us. Now, we didn't have this medium to do it as easily as we are today, but the fact of the matter is, had some other people not shared, have some other people not gotten in front of me where I could see what it looked like to be a coach or to be a leader, I wouldn't be on this today,
Mm.
quite frankly. So more than happy to share whatever it is I know, which could be not much once your listeners get done listening to this, but we'll see.
Awesome. Well, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. And I read your book, Why the Best Are the Best 25 Powerful Words That Impact, Inspire, and Define Champions. It's a phenomenal read. It's packed with knowledge. I plan on going through it a second time here after our conversation today. Before we get into the meat of the book, I first want to hear from you. Talk to me about your journey into the NBA. So you were an NBA coach for a number of years. I'm curious about, tell me about kind of the first day being in the NBA. What was that like? Take me back to that moment of your life.
That was maybe a fake it till you make it deal. Everyone wants to coach up there, and they want to coach like some of the guys we had, the Hall of Fame guys, like Kevin Garnett, a Paul Pierce, a Ray Allen, right? But what they don't understand is that they put Hall of Fame expectations on your knowledge, your ability to teach, your ability to adjust during a game, your ability to look deeply and into their games, and when they're that good, it's hard to find areas they can improve in, but you have to find them, right? So for me, in all honesty, I was a little bit scared, had a little bit of doubt as could I do it, but you can't let anyone know that, right? So what I kind of did is each and every day, if there was something that I wasn't quite sure of that we went over on the floor, I would study it and think about it and ask questions a little bit later. So for me, it was trying to show up, shut up, and catch up, as I like to say. Uh, Make sure I execute the role that Doc has given me, which was skill development, working with the players to improve their individual basketball skills, but at the same time learning the NBA, because the NBA X's and O's are a little bit different in how they go about executing them, and terminology is way different than that which I was used to in college.
We love hearing stories on the show, and you have so many great stories in the book. There's a story that you tell about Doc asking for your opinion. I don't know if this was early in your career or not, but I think this would be a great place to tell that story when you were in his office and you thought you might have been in trouble. Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, well, um, I'm not a big cursor, but I'm going to say something here. I call them oh shit meetings, right? Because you get called in, you're kind of young in your coaching career, especially in the NBA, and you get called in to say that in this case, Doc's office. From his administrative assistant. And as you're walking in, you're thinking of all the things that maybe you didn't do well in yesterday's practice, in the previous game, whatever the case may be. So I go in, and then he says, "Shut the door, could you?" Well, then you're even more heightened awareness of, okay, something's coming down. I don't know what it is. So we're sitting there after I shut the door, and he said, "Look, I called you in here because I need your opinion on something." So immediately I turned around to look to see who he was talking to, because surely he wasn't going to talk to me. I was kind of brand new in the profession, that sort of at that level. Uh, and the reason I tell this story is if you're a leader, you have to look for opportunities. Well, from this point forward, we'll call it an oh crap meeting, right? So you have to look for opportunities to have those oh crap meetings where you bring people in and you ask them their opinion, and it's just you and the leader sitting down. Because what that says is a number of things. It transmits respect of not just your knowledge, but the fact that you have thought about things, and you will have uh, your opinion on things, but you'll be able to back up that opinion with facts, right? It's a sign of respect for sure. And it's a sign of hey, you're on our staff. I value you. So I want your thoughts on this. So you walk in with your shoulders almost touching each other, with your chin in your chest, and you're like, oh crap, what did I do? But you walk out going, oh shit, I'm not bad. Okay. He came and asked me my opinion. No one else, just me. So uh, sometimes what happens is the simplest of things leave us with profound lessons. And that was one definitive leadership lesson that when I go around the country and speak, I'll oftentimes tell that story. That I just had to figure out how to utilize words depending on what crowd I'm in front of.
Sure. Tell me about I work with coaches and do some team consulting. Tell me about the line, Kevin, between I want to ask for opinions from my staff. That's important, but I also want them to know that at the end of the day, it's my decision. It is my team. There's a line between that. I want to collaborate, but I also want to make sure that at the end of the day, I'm the one making the decision. What's the advice to coaches on how to balance that act between the two?
Well, see, we had no line. Doc just wanted to utilize his personnel. We all knew, and we knew coming in when we took the job. And ultimately, if you have any sense at all as the non-leader, you understand at some point someone has to make the decision. And the decision is that of the leaders. What he or she wants is the best input possible. And I always used to say to Doc, look, as I give you ideas, you don't have to use them. I'm giving them to you because I've seen this and this is what I think about this. But I don't just give him those so that he will use that decision or that suggestion that I made. I more gave them to stimulate his thinking, to maybe challenge him to think deeper on this particular issue, depending on the magnitude of the problem, issue, or challenge, right? So, but we never, and maybe he just hired people like that. We never felt like, oh man, he never takes my decisions. Our job is to give them, not to bulldoze them through, right? Now, if you really believe in something, sure, we will debate and disagree. But when we walk out of that room, we will all be committed to whatever that decision is. Because if there's not a commitment from those who leave the room that were in that decision-making room, then there's no chance of that decision ever working. So what I used to always say is, we have to really work hard to make it work while we're seeing if it works, right? Because when you think about it, almost every major decision is an incredibly researched, educated guess. We don't know if it's going to work, but we have to try and make it work while we're seeing if it works. Because if we try and shoot it down from the beginning, it has got no shot. And the decisions you make have a tremendous bearing on the success you have. So our overall philosophy was this: you don't have to be right. We just have to get it right. You don't have to be right with what your suggestion is. And maybe we have 4 people. Different decisions warrant different people being in the room. Sometimes it may be what the public think is the least on the hierarchy, the lowest level person ever, but they're on the floor, right? Their sneakers are walking in the gravel, the dirt. They see stuff that maybe we don't see. So they'll be in the room in this decision. They won't be in the room in this other decision. So that's how we saw it. There was no line. It was simply, let's get the best decision that we possibly can. Now, for those who feel that they have a line, it's just an honest communication. I almost feel bad. You've done it because you speak, right? You coach, and you come in and they'll give you a speaking fee to come in and do your thing. But so many answers for me are simply this: you two get in a room and talk this out with respect. Right? Let the other person, believe it or not, there is a period at the end of sentences. A period says, I'm done. Butting in doesn't allow them to finish, right? So all this stuff that's going wrong, get in the room and get the people in the room who should be in the room to best get to the decision that needs to be made, and talk this thing out.
Yeah, that's such great advice. And sometimes it's just so simple. I want to get into some of my favorite words from your 25 words. So I have four that I'd like to kind of go through, Coach, if you're okay with that. The first one,
Uh-oh.
is that okay?
Yeah, it may be the wrong four, but go ahead. No.
So the first one that came out to me was the first one on your list, and it seems like you're very passionate about it. It's truth. And the quote on page 28 from Doc Rivers says, "The average players want to be left alone. The good players want to be coached. The great players want to be told the truth." And if I could just read a little excerpt from your book, you say, "If I were only held to one word that I believe is the most important for us to have ingrained in our everyday lives and thoughts, it would be truth. My years in the NBA have taught me a very important lesson about success at the highest levels. The NBA is a truth league. Becoming successful in our lives or careers is always about the truth. Neither the league I was in nor success we all wish to achieve can withstand the destructive power of lies. In the NBA and in life, the truth will ultimately be revealed. You will be exposed for what you are not. The truth will tell you whether you belong or not. It is the one word that all great athletes, coaches, and leaders demand to be told. Truth needs three things. First, you must be able to live it. Second, you must be able to tell it. And third, you must be able to take it." Clearly, this is a pivotal part of the book and of your journey. Talk to me about the power of truth, Coach.
Well, I have to say this. I've never really heard anyone read back some of my book. So I'm going to pretend I'm not me, and I'm going to say that was pretty good.
It was good.
So, yeah, sometimes you write it and you know it. And Wendy, my wife, always says this to me. You may think like a story about Kevin Garnett is just kind of every day, it's what you do. But those people who are listening, they don't know, right? So thanks for doing that. Actually, there was things that were just going through my head. I'm glad you got to the point about demand. You know, you know why most people don't like the truth? Because they know it's true, right? That's part of the problem. They know it's true, right? So they don't want to hear it. So, but what I found out from being around the best is they don't just want it; they actually do demand it. Kevin Garnett from meeting one with Doc, he demanded Doc tell him the truth because otherwise he wouldn't have gotten the Kevin Garnett that we all thought we traded for. Because he said, even though you guys tell me I'm really good and I'm maybe going to be in the Hall of Fame one day, I have blind spots. And the more I hear the truth, the more those blind spots open up. And the more they open up, the more I can see. The more I can see, the more I can do. The more I can do, the more I can help our team. The more I can help our team, the more we can reach our goals of winning a championship. But it all started with removing some of those blind spots because we told them the truth. Now, so much of it is how you do it, right? The truth doesn't always have to be driven and delivered in a negative, very accusatory tone. As a matter of fact, I would suggest you don't even tell them that way or tell her that way. Someone has to be the adult in the room, right? So be the adult who delivers the message in a helpful, caring way. But the biggest reason I believe that truth is, like, people always ask me, are these words in order? No, they're not, right? I actually put them in as they came to me during the writing process. And this particular part of the words was all kind of a 1 day long deal for me writing it, right? So, but the reason I say there's only one word that is listed properly, and that's truth. It is the single most important word in all of success, because how can any of us get to where we want to go without knowing the truth about what we're doing well? Let's keep doing that. But more importantly, what I found out from the best of the best, they appreciate you telling them what they're doing well. They do, because we all like to have our pride stroked, right? And our ego stroked. But what they really want, tell me what I'm not doing that's keeping me from getting to where I want to go. I need that truth more than the other one. So that's why I believe it's the single most important word in all of success, because we can't get to where we want to go as an individual or as an organization without knowing the truth about what's going on inside ourselves and what we're doing, and inside our organization and what the whole is doing.
I would love to hear more about if we could take it a step further, Coach. About tell me a little bit about how that's done at an efficient level. And maybe polarize it. What does it look like? What doesn't it look like? And what should it look like from a coach to an athlete, or maybe athlete to athlete? What are some tips for the coaches out there to have a truthful conversation? What does it look like? What doesn't it look like?
Well, first of all, take the emotion out of it. You know, I always say to people, where and when is really important when you're dealing with the delivery of a truth, especially a hard truth. That's why they call it hard truths. It's hard, right? And no one likes to do it. I was just doing a workshop with a group of 50 leaders in an organization, and it was very evident because we spent time on having difficult conversations. It was very evident that all of them uh, felt uncomfortable, right? So you got to figure out who you're talking to, how should you talk to them, when should you talk to them, and where should it be? Should it be in their office where they're more comfortable? Should it be in mine? Should I get out behind my desk so that there's no barrier between us? And let's make it face to face, not font to font or key to key, right? Get in front of them. So I think it's all about how you deliver it, right? It's about using respectful language, but also being direct. Tony Dungy had a great term or a great mantra. The former coach of the Indianapolis Colts, who won a Super Bowl, and he said, "You can be demanding as a leader without being demeaning. So you can deliver a hard message without being hard and accusatory." So I simply suggest that you know what you're talking about, right? Make sure you feel that you really believe that this needs to be said, right? That's number one. It's an inside process first, right? Then I always used to figure out, how do I want to say this? Who is it and how do I want to say this to them? And then I want to deliver it with respect and empathy. I want them to know that I'm doing this not to them, I'm doing it for them. And many times, DJ, what I'm saying to them and the issue or challenge that we're trying to clean up and clear up, I've probably been in their shoes too at some point in my career. So I can bring myself into it. Hey, look, I know you don't want to hear this. I didn't want to hear it sometimes when I was in that situation, but I also know where you want to go. And I firmly believe, DJ, that this is keeping you from getting to where you want to go. Now, as I deliver this message, DJ, see if you can't keep the emotion until you get out of the room. Then you can cuss me up and down. But let's right now keep all the emotion out of it. You see, I'm just trying to lower the temperature of the room. And then I just don't give them what it is, but why I think it is that way. Because why is a powerful tool when you're trying to get buy-in, especially today. It didn't used to be, say, when your dad was coming through and he was probably told to run through a brick wall and he did it and then asked, gosh, that hurt. I wonder why we did that. But he never asked why we did it. We all wondered why we did that, right? I think why is a great seller today. It's a great buy-in producer. So hopefully I answered your question. If not, go deeper with it.
Totally did. I love it from the coach to athlete standpoint. Now I want to kind of change it because we have athletes that listen to the show as well. What does it look like to have a truth conversation from athlete to athlete? I've heard of organizations like Florida State softball. They have what's called a Truthful Tuesday, Coach, where they schedule 20 minutes to, hey, if there's something we got to talk about, guys or gals, what do we need to like? Let's bring this out. Let's not keep it under the rug. As you being it, with the Celtics, with the Clippers, I don't know if these kind of conversations come up. But what would your advice be for the coaches out there that want to facilitate, or an athlete that wants to facilitate an environment where we can talk truth from athlete to athlete? Do you have an example, story, or piece of advice that would fall under that?
Well, a couple of things first. Let me jot something down so I remember to say it, tell that story. But, when it's athlete to athlete, many times there's emotion involved, right? And there's accusation involved. So what we used to talk to our leaders, because they're many times the ones that are delivering the most messages throughout the course of a season, is uh, just make sure that the message is instructive and constructive, right? It's not, and make sure the message is not always a message that it helps you in the game. Hey, stop doing this because you're messing it up for me. When these messages become me centered, they're not received, right? I also believe tone and body language are important, although, in sports, sometimes the game does get emotional. An F bomb may drop out from time to time, right? And the body language may be one of accusatory in nature. We just want to create an awareness. So anytime I see a message that maybe wasn't delivered properly, I'll wait till there's separation between the two people who are doing it. Unless I feel I need to jump in where it was getting crazy and maybe they were getting ready to fight or something, that's different. But I would go to the person who delivered the message that I thought maybe could have been delivered better and say, hey, look, the content of your message was spot on. The delivery, DJ didn't even get it. He didn't even get it because he was so emotional about how you were delivering it. He didn't even get the content. So therefore, it wasn't a message, because we always defined a message to our players as this: a message is only a message if it's received and acted upon. That's a real message, right? And in order for it to be acted upon, the delivery is so important, right? And then the intent behind it. As I said in the beginning, the intent, was it so I can look better on this play? No, the intent is so we could get it better when it happens again in the game. So, like with Chris Paul, he is very smart and he really knows the game and he knows when things aren't going well. But sometimes the way he would deliver the message, it would just cause a shutdown from the person who was supposed to be receiving it. So for Chris, that was a step he had to take in his leadership journey, because the truth of the message was really good, but it wasn't received and certainly not acted upon because of how it was delivered. So I just think creating an awareness, talking to your players in a non-emotional part of the season about emotional things that would happen during the season, right? It's just like when we do special situation plays, down 3, sideline out of bounds, 4 seconds left. If you're waiting to that point to figure out your play, it's too late. We talk about those things in the off season when the emotion of the game isn't there, right? The pressure of that moment isn't there. And then we have our list of things in those situations. Well, what I try to do with our players is just create a mental list ahead of time. Okay, we are now playing the Golden State Warriors in Game 7 to advance to the NBA Finals, to be the Western Conference representative. Let's say it's DeAndre Johnson, DJ, our big center. Chris, he's doing some things wrong, and you're really starting to get mad because it's not going right, and you really want to get to the finals. How are you going to deliver that message? Because if you deliver it the wrong way, we may have less of DJ than you even thought we had. So be careful. Think about those things now. It's kind of like my definition. You read it in the book of preparation. Be there before you get there. That's what preparation is. You take care of all the what ifs. So I'll end it there.
I love it. There's a lot in there. So what I'm hearing, a couple things. It sounds like timing is a huge part of truth telling. And it also, I love what you said about you guys talk about this before it actually happens. One of the things I've really been learning and soaking in a lot from a book I'm reading by Michael Bungay Stainer is this idea of the best teams and organizations talk about the how before they get into the what. So how are we going to work together? Because we know shit's going to hit the fan. We're going to hit adversity at some point. But let's talk about how we're going to work together before it actually happens. And it sounds like that's been a part of your journey as well, Coach.
Yeah, and we're not too wrapped into how first, what second. We know both are really important, but also the second W, why. Right. As I said earlier, we've just always believed that why is a great buy-in producer. Right. So it's the combination of the three things. And, you could probably get in a room with him and say, okay, Well, how we're going to do things is this way. Well, what are we going to do? Well, what we're going to do. So, um, but what I like about the author you just mentioned is now he's gotten me to think, okay, uh, what is the best order?
Hmm.
Because I've always believed what, how, why,
Hmm.
right? So I don't know that I'll change, but it's got me, and I think that's what books do. I don't think books, I don't like to read books that give me the answers. I like to read books that challenge me to find my answers,
Hmm.
right? So, and in just that the little piece that you just brought up, I'm going to think about that today as I
Yeah.
do my late Christmas shopping.
I love it. The next word that I wanted to go through was commitment. And I really enjoyed the way you put this. You said that when I pose this, or sorry, I will often ask players what time zone they operate in most often. When I pose this question, I get some weird looks because they automatically think of the time zones across the country. But the time zones I'm talking about are the time zones of success. These are the time zones of winners and losers. The time zones I'm referring to are spare time. I'll do it when I get to it. Part time. I'll do it every now and then. Full time. I'll do it when and only when it's required, but I'll do it all the time. I'll do what it takes and more every time and more every time you need me, regardless of the circumstances. I thought this was so cool. It gave me a little bit of smirk on my face. Tell me a little bit about commitment in the different time zones.
Well, commitment by the time zone analogy is it's not conditional, right? Commitment really should have no expiration date. Milk has expiration date, right? Certain foods have expiration dates. I don't think commitment should have an expiration date. You're either, you know, some people don't do anything. Some people are interested in, but those who become successful are committed to. Interested in, I don't think it gets you over the hard parts of the journey to get to where you want to go. So, but I think committed to does get you over those hurdles and those roadblocks that inevitably are thrown in our way. Success is really smart. It really is, and it's a great team, right? And one of its team members is failure. It puts failure in front of you to see if you really want to be successful. It puts embarrassment as another member of success's team. It embarrasses you a little bit because you didn't succeed in that little thing you were trying to do, right? So what I was trying to talk about with the time zone is simply you have to be committed to, not just interested in. And it's got to be an all in, right? Pat Riley, the great coach, NBA coach, who is now the president of the Miami Heat, he used to say, "You're either in or you're out. Which is it? You're either in or you're out," which means you're either committed to the Miami Heat or you're not, right? And they wanted guys who are all in. And you have to be careful because people today are pretty smart and very coy. It may appear that they're all in and they're really not, right? So you have to be careful and evaluate those people. They talk well in front of you, but when they get by themselves and maybe in the locker room and they try and recruit other people, right? So, everybody wants people who are all in. Nobody wants people who are not in, right? But there's a middle ground there where you have to be careful. Those who appear to be all in, but are really not in. Those are the ones you got to be aware of because, like I said, they will try and recruit other team members because they can't live on an island, right? They want, and usually what they go after is the younger players who maybe don't know enough just yet, the rookies or the freshmen, right? So that's how I would kind of respond to the question you posed.
I love it. I know exactly what you're talking about just with my work with consulting. One of the people that is brought up in your book often, who I believe is all in, is Kevin Garnett. I live in Minnesota, so I've always been a big KG fan. You have a story about Kevin Garnett during practice when you guys were playing a shell defense. I have it here in the book. I can read it, but if you want to tell it, I would love for you to go through the story of Kevin Garnett when Doc was going to take him out of practice and he didn't want to come out of practice. That to me is all in. Would you mind telling that story?
Yeah, well, I can't really tell it exactly the way it happened because he can get colorful with his words every now and then. So, and I don't know all the listeners here. They may be ones who can't wait till Sunday every day and get to church. Well, there may be a sentence or two that Kev would say you wouldn't want to be said in church. So, anyway, we had played a game the night before, and it was during the playoffs, and we didn't play again until 2 days from then. So we did have a short practice the day after the game. And in particular, our team overall didn't play well defensively. Kevin always plays well defensively, but his standards are so high that even if he plays what another player would consider to be a good game, it's not for him. So he really felt he didn't play well defensively the night before. So in his mind, it was already set. I'm getting every repetition that there can be gotten tomorrow when we go over the defensive drills. Offensive drills, if the other guys want to get in, I'm good with that. But any defensive drill, I need to get better, right? So we kind of had an agreement with Kevin after about 4 or 5 repetitions of a drill, just kind of, especially late in the year, just we're going to take you out. We want to save your legs for the game because Kevin plays so hard. He might have been 34, but his legs were 71. Right, because he just played so hard.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted those legs the best they could be during game time. So Doc tells our rookie to go get Kevin out. So he walks over to Kevin and says, "Kev, I got you." Well, Kevin basically said no in his way of saying no, and he got down lower in his stance. Well, the rookie looks over to Doc and says, like, what should I do? And Doc says, "Get him out. Get him out." So he goes over to Kevin again, a little more guarded this time because he just got blasted. The last time he said, like, "Hey, like, Kevin, I got you." Kevin said no again in his own language and got even lower in his stance. And all the other 7 guys in the drill are standing up, wondering, like, what's going on here? So finally, Doc walks over and he said, "Kev, come on, you got to get out." What did Kevin do? In his own language again, no, and got even lower in his stance. Doc had to grab him by the arm, walk him over to this court that was next to, if your viewers can see, we were on this court. We had a court right next to it. Doc walked him over and placed him in the lane and said, "Stay there." And we all went back to the real drill. Well, as we were going back in the real drill, I could hear the like sneakers squeaking and talking going on. No one was over there except Kevin Garnett, future Hall of Fame player. No coaches, no teammates, no cheerleaders, no fans, no referees, no whistles, no nothing. Just Kevin Garnett, no ball. So on the real drill, what happens when the ball is shot? If you're on defense, you yell the word "shot" because it alerts everybody to block out. Maybe you don't see the shot being taken because you're trying to get through a pick. Well, once we hear "shot," we go to blockout mode. Well, behind me, I hear the loudest shot call I've ever heard in my life. It's Kevin. I turn around. He's in the air because on the real floor that we were doing the drill on, the ball was shot. So everyone's fighting for the rebound. He's in the air rebounding a ball that's not there. Turning in the air, throwing an outlet pass with no ball, by the way, to a player who isn't there. And in this drill on the real court, we were running down to the other end. He was sprinting now and yelling to his teammates who weren't there, "Sprint, sprint, sprint." And just like he would have been on a real floor, now he's on offense. And all of a sudden I hear all this terminology in offense. Well, come to find out, the reason he did that is he said to us, basically, he said, "Look, if you want to kick Kevin Garnett out of a drill, you have to kick him out of the gym because I didn't play well last night and I'm going to get my repetitions in." Because Kevin understood and was all in on becoming the best he could be. And he knew part of the definition of being all in as an athlete is getting your repetitions in. You know, a lot of players would have hugged Doc and kissed him on the cheek saying, thank you for taking me out. We played last night. I'm on a defensive drill. All players hate defensive drills. Thank you so much for taking me out. Not Kevin. He was going to get his repetitions in. Even though nobody was on the floor, he was still sliding, talking, and pretending like he was in the real drill. So, lesson there is, you know, we've been told that hard work will get you anywhere you want to go in life. And that's not true today. It's so competitive. Hard work's a given now. Hard work is a given to move up the ladder of success, right? So if that's the given, what's the separator? It's what Kevin taught us that day. It's not just the hard work, it's the unrequired work. He wasn't required to do that. As a matter of fact, he was told to get off the floor and rest. But no, he wanted to get better. So that was kind of the story. You know, depending on the crowd I'm in front of, I can actually truly bring you there, and it has a different flavor. But that's good enough for your listeners.
It's a phenomenal story. Thanks for telling that. I'm a big KG fan, so I love that story even more. Another word I want to go through today, Coach. So when I teach my mental performance with my athletes, I teach a 7-skill system, and one of the skills is routines and habits of excellence. And so one of the words that really just caught my attention here is habits. And on page 84, you say, or Ray Allen says, there's no big secret to success in the NBA. The secret there is no secret. It's just boring old habits. And then you say, how important are habits? Many will say they are what we fall back on. While I agree in part, I also believe they are much more important than that. I believe they are what we rely on in our most difficult moments of stress, pressure, and uncertainty. I would love to hear from you, Coach. Why are habits so important to you? And can we open that a little bit on what that looks like at the highest level?
Well, habits in its simplest form are just things that we have developed over time through repetition of executing whatever that thing is, right? So because it is execution driven and repetition driven, that says to me that, gosh, we can form a habit. It's not like this magical thing. It's me, number one, having the awareness uh, to actually do it in the way it should be done, doing it all the time. But here's the thing: when emotion comes into play, when pressure of a situation comes in, we call these things the moment of truth in a game. When the moment of truth in a game, right? You sink to you don't rise to the occasion, as the SEALs say. You never rise to the occasion. You sink to the level of your habits and preparation. Now, sink may mean, oh, that's not good. No, sink may be way, 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 way up here, right? The emotion of the game is way here, but your habits and preparation are up there too. So for us, especially for a rookie, you know, we talk about certain habits that they have to have. One is an everyday work ethic. That's a habit. Coming in on the days you don't feel like it. Well, the emotion says, I'm tired. I don't feel like doing this. Well, a habit is designed so you can overcome that obstacle of fatigue and emotion. Now, if you really need a day off, you know, that's where our trainers come in, our performance coaches come in, and they'll let us know this kid needs his day off. We get that, right? So, you know, habits are a separator. And I think the thing that we have to remember is there are two habits that can be formed: good habits and bad habits. So when we get back to that word truth, one of the things that I would suggest with everyone, if they really want to bring truth into their lives, is consider and try and figure out who can be some of the truth tellers you can get in your life, right? Because they may help you recognize a bad habit. You may not even know it's a bad habit because you just do it all the time, right? But a bad habit to us is something that's keeping you from getting to where you want to go, right? Eliminate that, right? So, and I think, you know, I mentioned I was doing a workshop this past week to that leadership group. And one of the things we talked about is habits. And one of the exercises we did was a very simple one, simply because I wanted to create an awareness, right, of this word. Write down just two habits you have that you think have really contributed to the success you've had in your life? Because if they've gotten to this leadership position, they've accomplished a lot. What helped them get there? And I said, list two that you in your mind, it comes up occasionally, if not more often. God, I gotta get better at that. I gotta change that habit. It could be eating at 9:30 at night, yet you want to lose weight, right? It could be wanting to learn more about leadership, right? So you get into the habit of reading about leadership 30 minutes a day, and that becomes 40 minutes, becomes 50 minutes. All of a sudden, boom, you're really taking in some knowledge, right? So again, I go with my kind of core philosophy, a few core philosophies I have. This is one of them. Success lies in the simplicity. Confusion lives in the sophistication. Don't try and Ivy League educate everything you do, right? Try and simplify it. Hey, a habit is something that we repetitively do. So what are the habits I need to have to get to where I want to go? What are the ones that are keeping me from, that I'm doing all the time that are keeping me from where I want to go, right? So, uh, you know, NBA, pro athletes, they have eating habits on game day. Some may call it a routine, but it's really a habit. They do this thing the same way all the time, right? Some have shooting drill habits, right? Some have a work ethic habit. It just, I think the biggest thing is sitting down with your players or your employees if you're in a corporate setting, and just making them aware how important habits are to getting them to where they want to go individually and as an organization.
I love the awareness that we can't change what we're not aware of, coach. That's a great first step. I'm curious, as a mental performance coach, I've been eager to ask you, one of the things with mental performance coaching is trying to help athletes flush the previous play. So airball, get rid of it. Next play mentality. Can you live in the present moment? I'm curious, coach, with being in the NBA as long as you were, what were some of whether it was a tool that you saw, or if you had an example of how were the best of the best able to flush the previous play or the previous game, whether it was an air ball or the crowd is booing them? Talk to me a little about the mental side of some of the best athletes you've been around, specifically getting that flush mentality and getting rid of the past and focusing on what's right in front of them. Were there any tools or any patterns you noticed from some of the guys you were around in your time in the NBA?
Well, I think the pattern is a pattern of belief. They believe in their work. You know, belief exists because of what went in behind it, right? The work, the repetition, if those types of things that go in that allow you to believe that you're pretty good at this skill or this part of the game, say. Again, it's two people getting into the room, or in this case, maybe during a timeout, and just getting in front of them. Hey, calm down. Yeah, but I just messed up that play. Okay, let's go back and fix it. What do you mean fix it? I can't go back. Exactly. Exactly. You can't go back. Sometimes I'd walk them on the floor. Come on, let's go. Let's go to the other end. Let's go to the other end and fix that. Well, coach, I can't fix it. It already happened. Exactly. It already happened. So what can we do? I'll tell you what, let's get pissed off. Come on, DJ, let's just get pissed off. Come on, yell at me. Well, that's stupid. Yeah, it is stupid. So what can we do? I can do better next time. Ah, yeah, exactly. So, but we're all different. How we send and messages and work through things is all different. I'm a big believer in just like getting them to see the complete opposite and how stupid that is. Come on, let's go out. Well, coach, we're at Madison Square Garden, right? There's all these writers who kill you in the papers the next day. It doesn't matter. Let's go out and fix that mistake. Well, I can't. It already happened. Okay, then let's figure out, what do we do now? We can get pissed, or maybe we can figure out, okay, from this point forward, try and do this, right? Because if you stay in the emotion of the moment and you don't get into the next play, you will truly repeat oftentimes what happened. And it may even be in another part of the game because we lose you mentally, right? And many times I'll just say to a player during a game, hey, look, let's drop that. Let's talk about that after the game. because I know how you can play, and we need that guy from this point forward. Okay. Hey, you airballed? I've seen Steph Curry airball. He ain't a bad shooter, DJ. He's not a bad shooter. It happens to him too. Hey, join the club. I said that a lot. Hey, join the club. What do you mean club? Well, the Steph Curry club, the Jerry West club, the LeBron James club, right? All these great players. Join the club. Yeah, that happened to them. But here's the difference. They move on. What do you want to do? They move on. What do you want to do? Hey, they move on. I'll say it 3-4 times until I no, okay, they heard it, right? So, because so much of this is, again, we talk about this before stuff happens. Like, hey, let's talk about we're in the playoffs, or we're at Golden State, which is one of the loudest crowds in the league at the time I was in the league. And all of a sudden you do airball. What are you going to do? Well, at the time they're going to say, I'm just going to go down and I'm going to take the next open shot. Okay,
Right.
let's remember that.
Right.
Let's remember that. We're here in our office right here. And when you airball during the season, I'm going to take you back to this day because you told me in a non-emotional state that this is what should be done. So let's do it. Now, sometimes you got to let them get their PO'dness off and out, right? But, don't let the last play. I always said to players, we've got to learn from the past, not live in the past. And that's true for incredible success or devastating failure. Let's learn from it and let's use it in the future, right? And part of using it is don't let it happen again in this game, and then we'll figure out a way tomorrow when we come back in, right? But part of it is, like you had mentioned, changing behavior. And I don't know what your world says how you change behavior, but I've always thought that to change a behavior, you must first change the way someone thinks. Because if they start to understand the importance of the next play, and they really feel and believe there is an importance of the next play, maybe they start behaving that way more often. But what we as coaches and leaders have to understand is it ain't changing. Like, he's going to airball and get pissed again. Probably, especially if it happens maybe 10 days from now, because there's a little separation from the last one and they forgot the lesson that was learned afterwards. Like, you got to keep leadership and coaching is all about reminders and repetition, message repetition, right? We believe.
Mm-hmm. No, I love it. Coach, take me and my listeners into a halftime of an NBA game. I'm, as I said, a mental performance coach and a team consultant. One of the things I do is I try to improve the systems and try to improve the efficiency of the team. And in a game like hockey and basketball, it's very flow oriented. There's not a lot of stoppage per se, more in basketball than in hockey. Maybe a bad example, but in halftime, that's the chance for you guys to really visit your systems and be efficient for the second half. For me, it's kind of a selfish question here, coach, but what do the best half times look like? And what do some of the, maybe if we polarize it, some of the worst halftime looks like? What's the system? How do you, 15 minutes is a critical, pivotal moment of your night. How do you focus in and how do you make sure that those 15 minutes produce success for the second half? Can you walk me and the listeners through what halftime looks like in the winning locker room?
Well, let me go to the bad one first.
Sure.
There's pointing, complaining, playing the victim, accusing, or there's selfish silence. Someone's so mad and they're so into themselves and their game that they ain't not even going to think about how things can improve, right? So part of, I think, a locker room is knowing your team that year. A veteran team, you may be able to let them talk it out for a little bit themselves. Part of that is, do you have one or two players on your team that others will listen to? More influence or type of veterans on your team, because sometimes the message said by them, especially a negative message, is more readily received than a coach coming in, right? So we would give our team in a championship locker room a little bit of time to settle down and maybe talk amongst themselves a little bit. And because we had like a Kevin Garnett or a Paul Pierce or a Ray Allen or even a guy by the name of James Posey, who at the time was the only one who won a championship ring before we won one in with the Celtics. James was the only guy on the team who actually had a ring with the Miami Heat. He got a ring, right? So, so know your team. If it's a young team, we probably would have a coach maybe right near the door, just kind of observing and listening. If it's a vet team that will talk to each other, we're probably all out in the hallway trying to figure out our strategic changes, right? Now, what we wanted to do was more times than not, just deliver an adjusted game plan, right? Because as I would often say, like, what do we want to do? Blast them or prepare them?
Mm.
Right? We can blast them if we want, right? And then, maybe they don't even listen to the preparation to do well in the second half. Or we can, because here's my thing. The game plan was so important before the game. Why wouldn't it be just equally, if not more important, in the middle of the game when the other team has had a chance to see your game plan and adjusted to it and maybe is beating your game plan? I always used to say this too. Guess what? The Lakers practice too. How about that? They practice? Wow. So they may be better in the first half at what they're doing than you are at what you're doing. Make an adjustment, right? So I think it's knowing your team, knowing the situation. Sometimes a good getting on them because you know your team may be enough. And it may be just simply an effort adjustment, or it could be a strategic or scheme adjustment that you have to make. I think you have to read that, right? Even on that night, you may have to read it. Because sometimes a whooping every now and then can work, provided it's not personal. All of our blasts were we and us driven. It was not Tony, you're not doing this, right? Or we might say, hey, look, Kobe's hard to defend. Tony's working his tail off to defend, but we have to have a second and third defender kind of in a position where Kobe thinks there aren't any lanes and gaps. Okay. And we would say the fans think it's Tony getting beat. No, it's Tony plus the two people who should be in the gaps. Three of us are getting beat, not one. Right. And none of us want to be in that position. Right. So let's help each other. And it's going to be amazing, guys. With a little bit of help, this game changes. Right. And they're up 16 right now. And now it gets down to 12. Then it gets down to 8. Then it gets down to 4. And guess who's pressured now and who's worried now? Not the Celtics, the Lakers. So I'm telling you guys right now, if 3 guys defend them, we're good. If I let any one of you, we have Tony on him because he's our best defender. He's our best defender. Right? Tony, you are our best defender. That's why you're on him. Right? But we need more guys. So it just depends. Like, you got to, like, part of a good leader is reading the vibe that moment and also knowing your people before that moment. What can they take? And that gets all into something else, the relationships, right? The stronger the relationship, the harder the message can be sent, right? You look at Greg Popovich. He's not handing out, candy canes and whatever else they can hand out in San Antonio in timeouts. He's handing out some heat at times, some venom at times, and they all listen. Why? Because they know Pop has their best interests at heart, right? So they'll take that. So, those are things that fly into my head when you ask that question. And again, if I don't answer one of these questions, just keep drilling it down if you need to, because I'm good at just, you asked A, I'm going to F. Why? Because I have no idea how to answer A, but I'm going to sound intelligent because I go to F.
You do a great job. I felt like I was in the locker room there. I love it. My last question here, one of the coaches, the basketball coaches I worked with, wanted me to ask you the question about Ubuntu. In 2007, 2008, you guys cultivated this term called Ubuntu, if I'm pronouncing that right, Ubuntu. Can you talk to me a little bit about that? Why was that so important? Who came up with it? And how'd you guys live that as we kind of close down today's conversation?
Yeah, it's Ubuntu. Uh, Lesson number one: everyone you meet knows something you don't, so pay attention. That's lesson number one. You may think, where did he? That's definitely F. I asked A, he went to F. No, that's A plus. Okay, so why do I say that? Doc went to Marquette. That's where he went to college and played college basketball. And he, because of his success and celebrity status that he's garnered over the years, he was asked to be on the board of regents for Marquette University. So they have meetings every summer. And this particular meeting was the year before, the year we had just traded for Kevin Garnett and got Ray Allen, James Posey, our good team, the team that won the title that year. And one of the members, a woman that was on the board during a break, a little break, 15-minute break of their meetings, just asking Doc about the Celtics in this year. And eventually Doc said, I know for us to win it, we've got to be the best team out there. And I'm still searching for that team message. And the woman said, have you ever heard of the word Ubuntu? And Doc said, no, what is that? And she started to explain it a little bit. So that night, Doc went on opened up his computer and just started to drill down on what this is. And he said, wow, that's it. And for the listeners, to this day, I feel it's the best team philosophy that I've heard. And Ubuntu is a way of life over in Southern Africa and in many of the villages. And these villages don't have the things that we have. Like I see the background of your books. They may not even have one book in their house, right? You see the background here, a TV, right? We have things that they couldn't even dream of having. So anyway, Ubuntu has two basic tenets, two basic pillars, two basic foundational pieces, if you will. And number one is people are people because of other people, meaning we need others for us to become our best, right? And the best example I can give you is let's say in our sport, the first year LeBron was in with the Lakers, they didn't do quite as well. Then they traded and got Anthony Davis and a couple of other pieces that complemented both LeBron and AD. And they do really well, right? LeBron can't do it all by himself. He needs other people, and he becomes his best when he gets other people doing their best. That's why in an Ubuntu philosophy, we relish in others' successes. We're not upset because of them, because if they do well, we do well. And the second tenet is I can only be all I can be if you are all you can be. I can only be all I can be if you are all you can be. Let's drill that down to just such an easily understandable example. Boston Celtics, Ray Allen, one of the best shooters in the game, wanted to lead the league in three-point shooting. Rajon Rondo, great passer, wanted to lead the league in assists. They needed each other because when Ray was open, he needed Rondo to throw him a great pass where he could catch it in his shooting pocket and go right up into his shot, because that would give him more time to release the ball. If Rondo throws it down by his ankles, it takes a second and a half to get it to the shooting pocket, another second, and the defender's there. Harder shot. So Ray needed Rajon. Well, how does Rajon lead the league in assists? Ray has to make the shot. So he's got to deliver him the great pass, and then Ray has to help Rondo by making the shot. Both of them needed each other. Neither of them could be all they could be unless the other person was all they could be, if that makes sense. So that became the foundational piece. And it was so important to us that we discussed it as a team multiple times. We even had the rookies. We had 3 rookies that year. Believe it or not, they had to go home and in essence do a book report. They had to come back in 2 days and deliver to the team what Ubuntu means to them and how they felt it could help our team and how they felt if we got our team right, we could maybe win a championship. Now, this is the NBA professional sports, and you're asking some guys who are just, God's gift to the college they went to do a book report that you do in 3rd grade? Yeah, it was that important. right? When it's that important, you do the things that need to be done to make sure you can do the things you know need to be done, if that makes sense.
Totally. Ubuntu, I am because we are. That's phenomenal stuff. I'm going to take that. Coach, thanks for your time today. I feel like I could talk to you for hours. I know you got to get going. For my listeners out there that want to support you, obviously this book is incredible. Why the best are the best. 25 powerful words that impact, inspire, and define champions. We went through about 4 or 5 words. There's a bunch more in here. Coach, how else can my listeners support you?
Yeah, well, the biggest way they can support me is to become their best, right? That's why I wrote the book. Just do what you can. If this book can help you, fantastic. I think it can, but I'm not here to like try and sell a book, right? This was all about maybe sharing some things that I have seen work, like that it works. I'm not like going on theory, right? This works. We call it leadership in the streets, right? It's one thing to have the theory, but man, when you're in the office and you got to have a hard conversation, that theory book ain't helping, right? This is leadership in the street, right? On the court, in the dirt, right? The hard parts of leadership. So, and if anyone wants to order it, they can certainly do it on any of their devices and do it out there and get it from Amazon or whatever, or you can order it off of our website because we have a little thing there if you want it signed and that sort of thing. We'll do that for you, and that's kevineastman.net. kevineastman.net. They can that's the website where they could order the book if they want to. So, but the biggest thing for me is for everybody that's listening today, remain curious, always continue to try and learn, and respect the fact that there are many, many people out there who can actually help you. We actually don't know it all, right? So instead of being a know-it-all, let's be a learn-it-all, right? Let's do that because that helps us get to where we want to go.
Kevin, you're the man. Thanks for your time today. Really appreciate it.
No, my pleasure. And good luck to everybody out there. See you, DJ.